Hello, this is and I am Kitty Hollywood. Today's review is of a film that is very dear to my heart. It provided me with my first glimpse into a world of daring do, and what's more, with my first massive crush. It's Warner Brothers' 1938 glorious Technicolor release, The Adventures of Robin Hood. It was directed by William Keighley and Michael Curtiz. Cinematography is by Tony Gaudio and Sol Polito. The script, well, look, it's taken from the traditional legends, the Robin Hood legends. The screenplay is by Norman Riley Raine and Seton I. Miller. The costumes are by Milo Anderson, and the magnificent score is by Eric Wolfgang Korngold. Now, as if I need to tell you, it's about a nobleman made outlaw who robs from the rich and gives to the poor. Haunches of venison, fencing, and some pretty natty stripes ensue. Now, I just flat out love this film. Whenever I watch it, it takes me back to my childhood instantly and gives me a fierce desire to swing on a vine through a forest successfully, mind you.
And away! Yikes! And away! Yikes!
This, in no small part, has a lot to do with young Errol Flynn and his beauty. He led the most rambunctious, dissolute, and at times pretty hideous life, let's face it, and yet in this film he is alive and joyous and glowing and everything that you could want a hero to be. He is joined in this film by Olivia de Havilland, Claude Rains, Basil Rathbone, Alan Hale, Una O'Connor, Eugene Pallett, and millions and millions of other people. This was an expensive film. All stops were pulled out. It was shot in Chico, California, in Bidwell Park, which was at the time a huge park that was about 2,500 acres, if I remember correctly. They started shooting just as the rainy season began, which really tells the story of the making of the film. There were more stuntmen used in this film than there had been in any other film to this point in time, and they borrowed all the Technicolor cameras that were available for use and took them out to Chico. Warner Brothers had originally envisaged this as a vehicle for James Cagney, if you can believe that, in tights. Anyway, there were various hitches, and by the time they got around to putting this together, James Cagney was no longer with Warner Brothers. Enter young Mr. Flynn, who only a few years beforehand had been very successful in Captain Blood, which also starred Olivia de Havilland. Their strong filmic relationship was really cemented by Robin Hood. Of course, people were going to put them together. William Keighley was brought on as director. Claude Rains was signed, and his role of Prince John was enlarged due to his fabulous acting prowess.
And what about our young Saxon cockerel here? What's the matter? Have you no stomach for honest meat?
For honest meat, yes, but I've no stomach for traitors.
You call me traitor?
You? Yes. And every man here who offers you allegiance.
Howard Hill is known as the world's greatest archer, and he was the archery expert and technician in this film. You can see him during the archery tournament. He shot all the split arrow sequences and numerous other trick shots. Interestingly, Ben Burt, who was the sound designer for many of the Star Wars films, his favourite sound effect ever is the sound of the arrows flying out of their bows in The Adventures of Robin Hood, and apparently he uses this sound effect in almost all of the Star Wars films. Anyway, William Keighley and Errol Flynn got on very well. However, Rain, over budget, over schedule, William Keighley was replaced. There was a wunderkind at Warner Brothers. His name was Michael Curtiz. He had a reputation for being a great action director. He was brought in. He and Flynn disliked each other cordially, but obviously they were both professional enough to get the job done. He provides a great deal of zing and zip, and, you know, even if he was a bit of an idiot and not a very good actor's director, he knew how to create the necessary action in the film, let's face it. It is such a terrific film. The scenes between Basil Rathbone and Errol Flynn, especially the action scenes, work so well. Rathbone was apparently an accomplished swordsman. Apparently, Errol Flynn was more of a follow-the-choreographer swordsman, but he did almost all his own stunts, apart from a couple of one or two really dangerous ones, and his energy and his zest really but you know, big Flynn fan here. By Jimbo, it works.
Your sword, Gisborne.
He has said that he was in love with Olivia de Havilland during the making of this film, but that he was such a puerile idiot that he couldn't convey it to her in any way other than playing ridiculous practical jokes upon her, you know, putting plastic snakes down her undies and that sort of thing. It didn't work. Anyway, the set design is quite something. The art director for this film was Carl-Jules Weil, and the grandeur, the scale of the sets and the combination of this and the matte paintings that we used in this film really gives this film a look that harks back more to, you know, 1920s and early 1930s, but combined with the Technicolor is really quite extraordinary. And then you put that together with the score. Now, Erich Wolfgang Korngold had been brought out from Austria in order to compose this score, and he got to America and was about to refuse it. I can't make this film, when he heard that Adolf Hitler was just about to invade Austria. His family had just made it out on the last train, and so he said yes, and he stayed. So he credits often Robin Hood with saving his life.
Here we are, boss! There we are! Stephen down! Back to camp!
And the costumes. Now, funnily enough, Basil Rathbone has almost as many costume changes as Olivia de Havilland in this film. Watch it. Now, the costumes are glorious and magnificent themselves. The chain metal armour was apparently made out of woven string and metal paint. Now, there have been so many versions of Robin Hood. There were plenty before this film, and there have been plenty after. And although I can give a great deal of time and space to Alan Rickman, I love him, this, for me, is the definitive version of Robin Hood. They're just, all the others pale in comparison. So watch this film. Watch it for the disconcertingly real bird thingy that Robin Hood eats in the forest. Watch it for the fencing, watch it for the archery, watch it for Olivia de Havilland's horse, which apparently later became Roy Rogers' horse Trigger. Watch it for the way that Olivia de Havilland and Errol Flynn look at each other. Just watch it. 10 out of 10.